The golden sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the endless fields of wheat. The air is thick with the scent of fresh soil, and the only sound is the rhythmic scrape of a shovel against the earth. Daniel Wade, a man of few words, moves with the quiet efficiency of someone who has worked the land for years. His hands, calloused and strong, tell the story of a man who has traded one battlefield for another, one of crops and cattle instead of bullets and blood. A warm breeze rolls across the farm, rustling the leaves of the old oak tree standing tall near the wooden fence. Daniel pauses for a moment, resting his weight on his shovel. His piercing gaze scans the horizon, a habit ingrained from years of watching for threats in places most people never dared to go. But here, in this quiet corner of the world, danger was supposed to be a thing of the past. He takes a deep breath, soaking in the peace of the moment. But peace is fragile. And in the distance, a low rumble disturbs the stillness, the unmistakable growl of engines approaching on the dirt road. Daniel doesn't flinch. He simply sets the shovel aside and wipes his hands on his worn jeans, his expression unreadable. Then, headlights pierce the dimming light of dusk, and a convoy of black SUVs creeps toward the property like a pack of wolves, closing in on their prey. Daniel exhales slowly, his sharp mind already calculating. Trouble has come knocking, again. But this time, it picked the wrong man. The deep growl of an engine cuts through the silence, rolling to a slow, deliberate stop on the dirt road. The black SUV sits there for a moment, its tinted windows swallowing the last traces of daylight. Dust swirls in the air, hanging thick like a storm about to break. Then, the doors swing open. Boots hit the ground, heavy, calculated. 4 men step out, their eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses, their expressions cold and unreadable. Cartel enforcers. Their movements are slow but intentional, the kind of confidence that comes from knowing they own the fear of most men. One of them, tall, with a jagged scar cutting across his cheek, tilts his head, scanning the quiet farmstead. The place is still. Too still. A dog barks in the distance, then stops, sensing the shift in the air. Another enforcer, a stocky man with tattoos creeping up his neck, steps forward, crunching gravel beneath his boots. His hand rests on his hip, right where a pistol sits holstered, ready. He exhales sharply and mutters in Spanish, "Parece muerto." Looks dead. But something about this place feels wrong. The leader of the group, dressed in all black, rolls his shoulders and nods toward the farmhouse. Find him. They think this will be easy. Just another scared farmer who doesn't know when to keep his head down. They have no idea what's waiting for them. Ramirez steps forward, his boots kicking up dust as he surveys the quiet farm. The sun is almost gone now, casting long shadows across the land. He lets out a slow, deliberate breath, his lips curling into a smirk. "This land belongs to us now," he says, his voice dripping with arrogance. The other enforcers chuckle under their breath, emboldened by their leader's confidence. To them, this is routine, just another nameless farmer about to be swallowed by the cartel's reach. A simple message delivered through fear and force. Ramirez adjusts his leather jacket, eyes scanning the property. His fingers drum against the grip of his pistol. He expects begging, panic, maybe even a useless attempt to resist. Instead, silence. The wind shifts. The barn doors creak faintly. A crow caws in the distance, its wings cutting through the thickening tension. Ramirez's smirk falters, just for a second. Something feels off. And for the first time, a whisper of doubt creeps into his mind. He doesn't know it yet, but he just made the worst mistake of his life. Daniel Wade stands his ground, his calloused hands resting at his sides. His expression is unreadable, calm, steady, unwavering. The golden glow of the fading sun catches the edges of his weathered face, but there's no fear in his eyes. "I don't think so," Wade says, his voice low but firm. The cartel enforcers shift slightly, exchanging glances. They're used to men breaking, pleading. They're not used to this. Ramirez chuckles, shaking his head. "Maybe you didn't hear me, viejo." He steps closer, his leather boots crunching on the dry dirt. "This land isn't yours anymore. You hand it over, or we take it." Wade exhales slowly, his gaze locked onto Ramirez. There's something unsettling about his stillness, something just beneath the surface, like a sleeping wolf deciding if it's worth the effort to wake up. "You're making a mistake," Wade says, his tone never shifting. Ramirez's smirk tightens. A muscle in his jaw twitches. "I think," he growls, reaching for his pistol. "The only mistake here." The wind picks up. A gate creaks in the distance, and in that moment, Ramirez has no idea just how badly he's underestimated the quiet farmer in front of him. Ramirez narrows his eyes, then nods to one of his men. Without hesitation, the enforcer steps forward and swings a rifle butt straight into a wooden fence post, shattering it with a loud crack. Dust swirls in the air. "You don't want to listen? Fine," Ramirez sneers. He turns his gaze to a nearby chicken coop and raises his pistol. A single gunshot echoes through the farm, and feathers explode into the air as a lifeless hen drops to the dirt. Wade doesn't flinch. He just watches, silent, unmoving. Another enforcer steps forward, pulling out a hunting knife. He drags the blade along the hood of Wade's old pickup truck, carving deep scratches into the metal. "You got till tomorrow," the man mutters. "After that, we take everything, including you." Ramirez leans in, inches from Wade's face. "Be smart, viejo. This farm ain't worth dying for." The cartel turns, laughing as they pile back into the SUV. The tires kick up a cloud of dust as they speed away, leaving Wade standing alone in the settling silence. For a long moment, he doesn't move, just watches the road where they disappeared. Then, slowly, he rolls up his sleeves, revealing the faded ink of old military tattoos on his forearms. His fingers flex, as if remembering something. The cartel thinks they've issued a warning, but they have no idea what's coming. The night is silent, the only sounds coming from crickets in the fields. Then, without warning, flames erupt into the sky. Wade's barn, a structure that stood for generations, is now engulfed in fire. The wooden beams crack and groan as the fire spreads, consuming everything inside. From a distance, masked cartel members watch, their faces hidden in the darkness. One of them chuckles. "That should send the message," he mutters. The fire reflects in Wade's eyes as he stands a few yards away, his face unreadable. He doesn't panic, doesn't run for water. He simply watches. His grip tightens on the fence post, his jaw clenched. He's seen destruction before, much worse than this. The cartel men wait, expecting fear, desperation, maybe even surrender. But Wade doesn't move. He doesn't scream or beg. Instead, he takes a slow breath and steps forward, the glow of the fire outlining his figure. They don't know it yet, but this isn't just a farmer they've threatened. This is a man who spent years in the shadows, taking down the most dangerous enemies. A man trained to end conflicts before they begin. The cartel thought they were sending a warning. Instead, they just started a war. Wade stands just beyond the reach of the fire's glow, hidden in the darkness, his face calm, but his eyes sharp. The flickering flames cast long shadows across his land. but he remains still, watching. His barn is collapsing, sending embers into the night sky, yet he makes no move to stop it. The cartel members, thinking they've made their point, start laughing among themselves. One of them kicks a loose board, sending sparks flying. "That old man should get the message now," one mutters. But Wade isn't broken. He isn't afraid. He's calculating. He studies their movements, their body language. Who's confident? Who's nervous? Who's carrying what weapon? Years of training come back to him like muscle memory. He counts their numbers, notes their escape routes, and listens carefully to their voices. They see a simple farmer. But Wade isn't just standing in the shadows. He's preparing. And when he moves, it won't be out of fear. It will be the beginning of their worst nightmare. Instead of panicking or rushing to stop the fire, Wade remains still, his eyes locked onto the cartel members. He isn't just watching, he's studying. Every movement they make, every step they take, he absorbs like a seasoned tactician, preparing for battle. He notes how they position themselves, who takes the lead, who lags behind. He counts their weapons, the way they carry them, the confidence or hesitation in their grips. Even their voices tell him something. The loud ones want to dominate. The quiet ones are either dangerous or unsure. They think they're in control. They think they're sending a message. But they have no idea that Wade has already started planning his response. And when he strikes, it won't just be a warning. It will be the end of them. The next morning, as smoke still rises from the smoldering remains of the barn, a dusty police cruiser pulls up to Wade's farm. Sheriff Sarah Knox steps out, adjusting her hat against the glare of the sun. She's tough, seasoned, and knows exactly what kind of trouble Wade is dealing with. She walks up to him, arms crossed. "I know what you're thinking," she says, her voice steady but laced with concern. "But this isn't a fight you want to start." Wade remains silent, his expression unreadable. Sarah exhales, glancing at the burned barn. "They've taken over this whole county, Wade. The cartel owns the roads, the businesses, even some of my deputies. People who push back, they disappear." She looks him in the eye, searching for any sign of fear. But there's none. Just that same quiet, calculating stare. "Listen," she continues, lowering her voice. "I don't know much about you, but I do know this. If you make a move, you better be ready for what comes next. They won't stop." Wade finally speaks, his voice calm. "Neither will I." Sarah watches him for a long moment, then shakes her head. "Just be careful, Wade. They don't know who they're messing with, but neither do you." With that, she turns and walks back to her cruiser, leaving Wade standing there, staring at the wreckage of his barn. He's already made his decision. The cartel made their move. Now it's his turn. Sheriff Knox hesitates for a moment, then steps closer, lowering her voice. "You ever hear about what happened in Sangre Valley? A cartel tried to expand their operations into a war zone overseas, sent in their best men, ruthless killers, just like the ones who came here last night." Wade doesn't react. His eyes remain on the burned remains of his barn, his hands resting at his sides. Sarah continues, her voice steady but pointed. "They vanished, every last one of them. No bodies, no radio contact, just gone. Like ghosts took them." She studies Wade, searching for any flicker of recognition. Rumors say it wasn't just some random enemy force that wiped them out. Said it was one man, a ghost himself, a soldier so deadly, even the cartel's top enforcers didn't stand a chance. Wade still doesn't speak. He just watches the smoke drifting into the sky, as if the story means nothing to him. Sarah narrows her eyes. "Funny thing is, I looked into it once. The reports, the classified files. There was only one name tied to the incident, but it was redacted. She lets the words hang between them, waiting. Wade remains silent. Finally, she sighs, stepping back. "Be careful, Wade," she mutters, "because if you are who I think you are, and they find out, they'll send everything they've got." She turns and walks away, but Wade doesn't move. He doesn't need to confirm anything. His silence speaks louder than words. The cartel has no idea what's coming. Flashback. Years ago, the air was thick with tension, the kind only men who had seen too much war could understand. Deep in the jungle of an unnamed foreign country, Wade moved like a shadow, his rifle steady, his eyes cold. His team, elite operators, hardened by years of battle, followed his every move without question. They trusted him with their lives. Their mission was clear: eliminate a cartel stronghold that had been supplying weapons, drugs, and mercenaries across the globe. Intelligence suggested that high-ranking cartel leaders were present. Wade didn't hesitate. This was what he did. As they advanced, he signaled for his men to hold position. A convoy of armed cartel enforcers had arrived, heavily guarded, unaware of the specters lurking in the darkness. Wade watched, analyzing their formation, their weapons, their weak points. He counted the seconds. Then, his low voice crackled through the comms. "Execute." The night erupted into chaos. Suppressed gunfire, precise and merciless. Shadows moving in perfect synchronization. The cartel soldiers never stood a chance. Within minutes, their numbers had been cut in half. Those who tried to run found themselves trapped. Wade had planned for every escape route. He was more than just a soldier. He was a strategist, a hunter, a ghost. The few cartel leaders who survived long enough to realize what was happening saw him step into the light, his face expressionless. "Who are you?" One of them had choked out, fear in his eyes. Wade hadn't answered. He didn't need to. A final shot rang out, and the jungle was silent once more. Back in the present, standing in the ruins of his burned barn, Wade blinks. The memory fades, but the instincts remain. The cartel made a mistake coming here. They think they're dealing with a simple farmer. They have no idea they just declared war on a ghost. Wade had buried that past long ago. He had left the battlefield behind, trading his rifle for a plow, the sound of gunfire for the quiet rustle of wheat fields in the wind. He had told himself he was done, that the ghosts of his past would stay where they belonged. But now, standing in the glow of his burning barn, he felt it stirring inside him. That cold, calculating part of himself he had locked away. The cartel thought they were dealing with a simple farmer. They had no idea they had just awakened a predator. Wade inhaled deeply, steadying his thoughts. He had promised himself he would never go back, never pick up a weapon again, never become that man. But the cartel had made their choice. They had brought violence to his doorstep, and now he would show them the consequences. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about survival. This was about finishing something that had started years ago. Ramirez had dealt with stubborn men before. Farmers, shop owners, even local officials. People who thought they could stand against the cartel. None of them had lasted long. He saw Wade as no different. Sitting in a dimly lit room, a cigar burning between his fingers, Ramirez made the call. "Take care of him," he ordered. "Make it loud. Make it final." That night, 3 black SUVs rolled down the dirt road toward Wade's farm, their headlights cutting through the darkness. Inside, a hand-picked strike team of cartel enforcers readied their weapons: assault rifles, machetes, and enough firepower to tear through anything in their way. They expected an easy job, a simple execution. What they didn't know was that Wade wasn't just waiting for them. He was hunting them. As the SUVs slow to a stop, Wade observes from a distance, hidden in the tree line. His sharp eyes scan their movements, noting their tactical precision. These aren't just street thugs. They're operating with military efficiency. Through his night vision scope, he catches the glint of advanced weaponry, custom rifles, body armor, communication earpieces. Then he spots something that makes his jaw tighten. A drone hovers above the property, sweeping the area with infrared scanning. Another man in the back seat of an SUV adjusts a satellite phone, relaying orders in rapid Spanish. This isn't a simple hit squad. This is a militarized force, organized, well-funded, and dangerously professional. The cartel isn't just trying to scare him. They're coming to kill him. Deep inside a dimly lit warehouse, a cartel lieutenant hands Ramirez a file. Our contacts say the farmer might be ex-military, he mutters, cautious. Ramirez barely glances at it before tossing it aside. So what? He scoffs. A soldier is just a man without his army. His enforcers chuckle, convinced their numbers and firepower make them untouchable. But what they don't know, what Ramirez refuses to believe, is that Wade isn't just any soldier. He's a ghost from a world where men like Ramirez don't survive. And underestimating him will be their biggest mistake. As the cartel strike team moves in, expecting an easy kill, Wade disappears into the landscape he knows better than anyone. He doesn't rush into battle. He prepares. He sets up silent traps, weak points in fences that funnel them where he wants them. He uses the uneven terrain, the dense tree lines, the shifting shadows of the barn to move unseen. To them, it's just a farm. To Wade, it's a battlefield, and they've just stepped into his trap. Wade moves with precision, transforming ordinary tools into deadly instruments of war. Barbed wire, once meant to keep cattle in, is stretched across hidden paths, ready to snag and slow intruders. Rusty bear traps, forgotten in storage, are strategically placed near the barn entrance. One misstep, and the metal jaws will snap shut. An old irrigation system becomes a distraction. Wade rigs it to spray high-pressure water at just the right moment, disorienting the attackers. Shovels, pitchforks, and chains are positioned like hidden weapons, ready to be grabbed in an instant. To anyone else, this is just a farm. To Wade, it's a war zone waiting to be unleashed. Wade knows the land better than anyone. He moves swiftly, rerouting irrigation ditches and overfilling key sections of his fields. Within hours, the dirt roads turn to thick, sucking mud, an unseen trap for anything heavier than a man on foot. Trucks and SUVs will struggle, their wheels sinking deep, making escape impossible. Foot soldiers will find themselves slowed, their movements clumsy as they fight against the terrain. It's a simple trick, but a devastating one. Wade doesn't need to face them head-on. He just needs to control the battlefield. Wade moves under the cover of darkness, working swiftly. He knows the silos are perfect for an ambush, tall, hollow, and seemingly harmless. But in the right hands, they become deadly traps. Using tripwires and pressure-triggered mechanisms, he rigs the entrances. Anyone who steps inside will unknowingly set off a chain reaction, grain flooding out in a blinding storm, reducing visibility to zero. Hidden within the dust and chaos, Wade can strike unseen. Above, he secures counterweight-triggered doors, ready to slam shut, trapping anyone who enters. What seems like just another part of the farm will become a death trap for the unprepared. As the cartel's strike team moves in, silent and methodical, Wade watches from the shadows. He knows they expect a straightforward fight, guns, cover, and brute force. But war isn't just about firepower, it's about control. With a quick flick of a latch, he releases the cattle from their pen. Dozens of massive animals surge forward, their hooves pounding against the dirt, eyes wide with confusion and fear. The cartel enforcers, caught off guard, stumble back as the stampede barrels through their formations. Gunmen are shoved aside, some knocked to the ground, their rifles lost in the chaos. The night erupts in curses and shouts as men scramble to regain control. Wade watches from the tree line, calm and calculating. The real fight hasn't even begun yet. Wade knows that arrogance is the cartel's biggest weakness. He stays hidden, letting them believe they're in control, that he's just an old farmer running scared. Ramirez's men regroup, shaking off the chaos from the stampede. "Fan out," one of them orders, their confidence returning. They move carefully now, scanning the darkened farm, weapons raised. But Wade has already mapped out their every step. He watches from the shadows, patient, silent. He doesn't need to rush. He needs them to think they have the upper hand. Because the moment they let their guard down, that's when he'll strike. As they advance through the farm, their movements become tense. The night is too quiet. The wind whistles through the trees, but there's no sign of Wade. No panicked footsteps, no desperate escape. Just silence. One enforcer glances around nervously. "Something's off," he mutters. Then, a flicker of movement, a shadow that vanishes before he can react. Another man turns, gripping his rifle tighter. "Stay sharp," he warns. But it's too late. A sudden snap, a tripwire yanks one of them off his feet, sending him crashing into a pit Wade had disguised under loose hay. The others whirl around, guns raised, but the darkness plays tricks on them. Then a voice, low and controlled, cuts through the air. "You shouldn't have come here." They know that voice. Not as a farmer, not as some nobody in a quiet town. Years ago, in cartel war zones, entire units went missing, picked apart by an unseen force, the kind of enemy who struck fast and left no survivors. Now, standing on this farm, surrounded by darkness, they realize they've walked straight into his trap. The enforcers panic as their numbers dwindle. Shadows move where there should be none. Muffled grunts and the crunch of boots on dirt are the only sounds before another man vanishes into the night. Wade moves like a phantom, silent, precise, and unrelenting. A quick chokehold, a blade across the throat, a body lowered gently to the ground. No gunfire, no warning, just fear creeping into the remaining men's hearts. One enforcer stumbles backward, his breathing ragged. "He's picking us off," he hisses into his radio. Static, no response. Another man vanishes, the snap of a broken neck, the clatter of a fallen rifle. The remaining cartel enforcers huddle together, guns raised, eyes darting in every direction. Their training means nothing against a man who's spent a lifetime hunting people like them. Then, a whisper in the dark. Close. Too close. "You never should have come here." A final scream echoes through the fields before being cut short. The remaining cartel enforcers grip their weapons tighter, eyes wide with fear. Their radios, once filled with orders and check-ins, now hum with eerie silence. No responses, no backup, just dead air. Ramirez, still at a safe distance, listens in frustration. "Report, who's left?" he barks into his radio. Nothing. The men still standing exchange uneasy glances. Their bravado is gone. This was supposed to be easy. Intimidate a farmer, take his land. Instead, they're being hunted like animals. One enforcer swallows hard, voice trembling. He's not normal, Jefe. He's taking us out one by one." Ramirez clenches his jaw. "Pull back, regroup at the trucks." But the moment they turn, Wade strikes again. A snap of movement, a blur in the darkness. Another man drops, yanked into the shadows before he can even scream. Panic takes hold. The survivors sprint toward the SUVs, boots pounding against the dirt. But Wade has planned for this. The ignition clicks. A wire sparks. Boom! A fireball erupts from the first SUV, flipping it onto its side. The force knocks the remaining men off their feet. Smoke billows into the night sky. Ramirez stares in shock. This wasn't just a farmer. This was something else entirely. Something terrifying. Ramirez grits his teeth, gripping his radio. "Get the drones back online. I want eyes on that farm. Now!" Silence. One of his men stammers. "Jefe, the drones are down. Signals jammed. We lost control." Ramirez's frustration turns to rage. First, his men go silent. Now, his high-tech advantage is gone. He grabs a satellite phone, but even that spits static. Meanwhile, the convoy, his reinforcements, barrels down the highway toward the farm. They think they're untouchable, rolling in armored SUVs with firepower to level a small town. But as they reach the outskirts, something unexpected stops them. A crowd. Civilians, locals from the nearby town, have gathered in the middle of the road. Pickup trucks and farm equipment form an impromptu blockade. No weapons, no threats, just a line of men and women standing their ground. The lead driver hesitates, gripping the wheel. "What do we do?" One of Ramirez's lieutenants glares out the window. "Run them down." But the driver doesn't move. These aren't just strangers. They're people he's seen before. Shopkeepers, farmhands, the old man who sells fruit at the market. These aren't soldiers. A tense moment stretches between them. Then, pop, pop, pop. Gunfire erupts from the trees, not from the civilians, but from somewhere unseen. A convoy tire explodes. Another SUV lurches as its engine block takes a round. Panic sets in. The men scramble for their weapons, scanning for their attacker. But they see nothing, only shadows shifting between the trees. Ramirez watches from his distant vantage point, his face twisting in frustration. His men, his resources, his control, it's all slipping away. And the worst part? This was just the beginning. Ramirez clenches his fists, his patience shattered. His men, his elite force, are either dead or missing. The drones are useless, the convoy is in disarray, and now his reputation is on the line. Enough games. He grabs a rifle, signaling the last of his personal guard. "We finish this ourselves." The remaining enforcers, hardened killers, nod in unison. These aren't disposable foot soldiers. These are the ones Ramirez trusts, the ones who never fail. They load up, moving in tight formation as they approach the farmhouse. The night is eerily quiet, save for the crunch of boots on dirt. The fire from the burned-out barn still flickers in the distance, casting long shadows. Ramirez's voice is low but firm. "No mistakes. We get in, take him out, and burn this place to the ground." But Wade is already waiting. Hidden in the tree line, he watches them advance, counting, calculating. 6 men, full tactical gear, suppressors on their rifles. They're moving slow, clearing angles, covering each other's backs. Trained, dangerous, but not dangerous enough. A sudden gust of wind rattles an old windmill, masking the sound of Wade shifting positions. He moves with the patience of a predator. This isn't a battle, it's a hunt. He lets them get closer. 30 yards, 20. They near the house, stepping over the dirt Wade knows better than anyone. Ramirez lifts a hand, signaling his men to fan out. He's expecting resistance from inside, expecting Wade to be cowering behind some barricade. But Wade isn't in the house. He's right behind them. In a flash, he strikes. A knife across a throat, a suppressed gasp, a body hitting the ground. 5 left. Before they can react, a tripwire is triggered. Boom! A buried charge erupts, sending 1 man flying. 4. Gunfire erupts, but Wade is already gone. vanishing into the darkness. Ramirez curses, gripping his rifle tight. "Spread out, find him!" But that's exactly what Wade wants. A single shot rings out. One more man drops. 3. Another shadow moves. Another bullet fired. 2. Ramirez breathes heavily, spinning in circles, gun raised. "Come out and fight!" Silence. Then, a whisper from the dark, right behind him. "You shouldn't have come here." Before Ramirez can turn, strong hands seize him. The fight is brutal, but brief. Ramirez is skilled, ruthless, but Wade is something else entirely. A force of nature, a legend. With a final crushing blow, Ramirez collapses to the ground. He gasps for air, staring up at the man he underestimated. Wade looks down at him, calm as ever. "This land doesn't belong to you." A single gunshot echoes through the night, and just like that, the cartel's reign is over. Wade watches from the shadows, his expression unreadable. He knows these men, how they think, how they move. They aren't just gangsters. They're trained, disciplined, lethal. Good. He wants them to feel like they're in control. With calculated precision, he steps out into the open, just enough for them to see a flicker of movement. A bait. Ramirez catches it immediately. There, inside that barn. Just as Wade planned, the remaining cartel enforcers storm forward, rifles raised, ready to finish this. They've fought hard to get here. Their numbers dwindled, their confidence shaken, but they still believe they can win. Wade keeps moving, staying just ahead, leading them toward the safe house, or at least what looks like one. A small shed, hidden in the trees behind the farmhouse. A perfect place to corner a man. Ramirez smirks. "You can't run forever, old man." His men fan out, surrounding the building, fingers tight on triggers. They move in close, one of them kicking the door open. Empty. No supplies, no weapons, no Wade, just silence. And then, click. A sharp metallic sound echoes beneath their feet. Ramirez's smirk fades. "Move! Now!" Boom! A hidden explosive erupts from below, shattering the ground, sending men flying. Shrapnel rips through the night, followed by screams and chaos. Dazed and coughing, Ramirez struggles to stand, his ears ringing. 2 of his men are down, unmoving. Another limps away, blood seeping from his arm. And Wade, nowhere to be seen. Ramirez grips his rifle tight, rage boiling over. "Coward, come out and fight me like a man." A voice drifts from the darkness, low and calm. "You walked into my trap. Now you deal with it." A gunshot cracks through the night. Another enforcer drops, then another. Ramirez stumbles back, breathing hard. His squad, his best men, gone. He turns wildly, searching. But Wade is everywhere and nowhere all at once. The same way he used to hunt cartel leaders in jungles halfway across the world. He was never running. He was leading them to their own grave. Ramirez, the last man standing, grips his rifle, eyes darting through the trees. His heart pounds. He's never felt fear like this before. Then, a whisper, right behind him. "You lost." Before he can react, an arm wraps around his throat, cutting off his air. He thrashes, but Wade is stronger, faster, relentless. A few moments later, the fight is over, and so is Ramirez. Ramirez stumbles forward, gasping for air. His rifle is gone, his men are gone, just him and Wade now. He turns slowly, fists clenching. "You think you're some kind of ghost?" He spits, his voice hoarse. "You're just an old man." Wade steps into the dim moonlight. His expression is unreadable, but his stance says it all. Calm, controlled, dangerous. Ramirez lunges, swinging hard. Fast, but not fast enough. Wade sidesteps effortlessly, catching Ramirez's arm and twisting. Crack. A sharp pop echoes through the night. Ramirez grits his teeth, stumbling back, his shoulder dislocated. Wade doesn't give him time to recover. A sharp elbow to the ribs, a brutal knee to the stomach. Ramirez drops to his knees, coughing, trying to breathe. "You should have walked away," Wade mutters. Ramirez roars, throwing a wild punch. Mistake. Wade catches his wrist, pulling him forward into a crushing chokehold. Ramirez struggles, kicking, thrashing, but it's useless. He's fought before, but never against this. His vision blurs, his strength fades, the world tilts. Then, darkness. Wade releases the lifeless body, letting it slump to the dirt. The war is over, and the farmer still stands. Ramirez, gasping for breath, blinks in disbelief. His vision swims as he stares up at Wade, the man he thought was just another stubborn farmer. But this wasn't just some backwoods rancher. This was a ghost, a legend whispered about in cartel circles, a nightmare that once hunted them on foreign soil. His mind races back to the old stories, cartel commanders who vanished without a trace, entire operations dismantled overnight, assassins sent but never returning. The Delta Force specter who had crippled their empire years ago. And now, that same ghost stood over him. Ramirez tries to speak, but his body betrays him. Pain racks his chest, his vision flickering. His men are gone. His army is nothing. Wade kneels beside him, his voice calm. "You came to the wrong farm." Ramirez exhales a shaky breath. He finally understands. He never stood a chance. The remaining cartel enforcers, battered and terrified, scramble into their SUVs, speeding away into the night. Their hands shake on the wheel, their minds racing with the horror they just witnessed. This wasn't a failed job. This was a massacre. One by one, they send frantic messages up the chain, half-coherent warnings about a man who wasn't just some farmer. A man who moved like a shadow, struck like a phantom, and left nothing but destruction in his wake. Word spreads fast. Across the border, whispers of the ghost farmer ripple through cartel ranks. Some dismiss it as a myth, a cautionary tale exaggerated in fear. Others know better, because those who saw him never want to cross him again. With the cartel in retreat, the once fearful town begins to change. Sheriff Sarah Knox, who had spent years fighting a losing battle, now stands taller. She rallies her deputies, no longer hesitant to push back against cartel influence. The locals, who once lived in quiet fear, take Wade's stand as a sign. They won't be victims anymore. Farmers, shopkeepers, and ranchers start working together, watching each other's backs. No more silence, no more looking away. The message is clear. This town belongs to its people, not the cartel. With the dust settled and the town reclaiming its strength, Wade steps back into the quiet life he once knew. He tends to his farm, just as he always has, as if nothing ever happened. But those who witnessed the battle know the truth. This was no ordinary farmer. The cartel, humiliated and broken, won't dare return anytime soon. Rumors spread through their ranks like wildfire. Stories of a ghost, a phantom soldier who single-handedly dismantled an entire force. Some call him a legend, others a nightmare. But Wade doesn't care for legends. He simply watches the sun rise over his land, knowing that for now, peace has returned to the valley.